All right, so we're gonna just talk about some of the gear we brought on the trip, and not necessarily gonna be exhaustive, just some things we're messing around with and whatever just kind of comes to mind. This is pretty spontaneous, so Andrew's gonna go first.
So the main thing here is the aluminum plated Reckless 80. We're working on some new ideas for the Reckless 80. And this would use kind of a quick release system in the back here, and then 2 tie down straps on the front. The whole center section is aluminum, and then the legs are the standard from the standard Reckless 80. And it's still got the revolver system in there, but this kind of is like a hybrid between a Reckless 80 and a rack. It just becomes like a hold-off rack, and it's working pretty well. But we've got a bunch of other ideas to try. Also testing and in the middle of working on this handlebar bag. This is an early prototype, but it's kind of nice. I'm not using a tank bag at all. I'm just using this handlebar bag. It's got some organization in there, different pockets, but this one is still early days. And then we got my tool roll mounted on the front, which was kind of nice. It's just a pinner tool roll, but I just drilled slots in the plastics and then ran volley straps in. The nice thing is it's really accessible, and it also gets this heavy point load forward. I hate having everything on the back. The back end of your bike gets so heavy. So I actually want to put more up here. I think I'm gonna take up my headlight and build a little rack right here, just a little rack like that, so I can do a pinner and maybe 1 or 2 gas cans, and then replace the light with another auxiliary light and just use up that space there. And then of course I'm testing the Wildcat 8, which has been a great pack, and this one's almost ready to go into production.
Got the expandable beaver tail inside. Pretty cool.
Got my big heavy spare gloves in there, which are caked in mud right now.
It's starting to rain.
Yeah.
What are you wearing for apparel?
I'm wearing the Deluge, which we're working on. We're not gonna make these like this again, but we're gonna reinvent our rain layers into the Barfly. It's gonna be lighter than this.
And for what do you got for insulation? It's been pretty chilly.
Insulation, I just have base layer on, a couple layers of base layer.
Nice.
But no puffy or anything like that.
It's pretty cold out here. All right, I'll hand this to you. I'll go.
See, yeah, if you touch the screen, then the touch screen stays on.
Okay. For me, for apparel, I got I'm wearing the rack jacket, which has been awesome. It's been raining, it's been cold, stayed totally dry. Underneath that, and under my armor, you can't really see it, but I've got our new Ectotherm heated
the plug down there.
Heated jacket on. Yeah, so this thing has been awesome. When you plug it into the bike, it's toasty. It's like a mobile sauna. But then around camp, it just looks and feels like a normal hoodie. So you know, we were out to a restaurant last night. It's awesome. So that's been great. Got the graph base layer and the workhorse jersey underneath. The rack pants have also been awesome. I have those over our new Woodsman over the boot pants that we just released this year. I think they're actually sold out at the moment, but they're super comfy and have kept me completely dry and warm even though it's freezing. And I'm actually wearing these really cool socks, which of course you can't see, but this guy at a company called Pearly Possum Socks sent me a set of those to try. It says they're the best cold weather riding socks in existence, and I kind of have to agree with them. They've been really awesome on this trip. On the bike, so I've got a Reckless 80, kind of like Andrew, and mine is actually a similar concept, but it's made out of a composite material. So that's something else we're experimenting with. So Andrew's got the aluminum, I've got the composite, and we're just kind of comparing different characteristics of that. But it's really nice. Like, this bag is just on there so rigidly, man. It's like, just doesn't vibrate or move at all when I'm riding, which I love. Down here at the end of the legs, you can see I'm using volley straps to connect it to the bike, so that's new too. Andrew's using the nylon straps. I'm using these volley straps, so that's pretty cool. They've got some elasticity to them, but they're still super tough. In terms of the way the Reckless 80 is rigged, I've been experimenting with volley strapping things directly to the harness, kind of in front of and behind the Stinger 22. So my tool rolls here My camp chair is here. They're just really accessible, which is nice. And then the Stinger 22 just kind of nudges down in between them like that. I've got a prototype of the Gnome Tank Bag, which has been great, and it's neat to see that it works simultaneous with our bar bag. This is a prototype of the smaller version of our bar bag. So Andrew has the larger version. I've got the smaller version, just snacks and stuff in there. The Gnome is great. I've got 1.5 liters of water in there. That plus my backpack plus 1 additional liter of water is what I carried on this desert trip. And then on top here, I've got a little cell phone carrier that I just kind of mocked up, just experimenting with different concepts. I took our navigator and cut it apart, and you can see how this kind of mounts like that, and then it tucks away in this little pocket at the bottom. I don't think this is anything, this is just an idea, you know, it's just the concept of like using one of these rubbery connectors and then some kind of a attachment at the top and bottom that velcros down. Just a thought we had. And I've been thinking about it for a while, so it was neat to try it. It worked okay, but it's not perfect. And then I've got the larger Wildcat, and this is the 12 liter. I love this thing, man. The chest rig, I've got my inReach, my cell phone goes there. Got little snacks and charging cables in the chest rig itself. I love on the 12 liter, the way this expandable beaver tail has these compression straps at the bottom in addition to the top. So you can see I've got a 1.5 liter fuel bottle in there. And it just almost looks like the pack is just like designed for it, because I can cinch it down. It stays totally solid, and then as soon as we burn a little gas, I just dump that in the tank, get the weight off my back. It's been awesome. And then the tool holders on the side, I've got my air pump on one side, and then on the other side I've got a little tripod for our camera. So man, this pack is just like, I don't love it. Oh, and then one other thing on here at the very top, I've been using I've got my Israeli trauma bandage, but this padded pocket for my extra goggle lenses, because I have a clear goggle lens for days like today, and then for desert riding I have a red one as well. So it's really nice to have. It's not like a typical sunglasses pocket, like it's big, you can fit goggles in there, which is awesome. So I think that's pretty much it.
You got some fuel out front here too.
Out front here. This is how I've been carrying gas. I did this on a trip a few weeks ago, it worked great. I just took a drill and cut a couple slits in the ridge line of the fender there, and then I just run volet straps through there and put 2 fuel bottles in this dry bag, and just kind of disconnects like that. And again, with the fuel, you know, we're really just talking about having the fuel bottles like on my back and here. They're only full for the first, you know, 30 miles of riding, and then we dump them in the tank. So most of the time you just have empty bottles up here, empty bottle on your back, which hardly weighs anything. Man, it is getting chilly and wet.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much an overview of what I brought, and I guess now we'll load up and head back to the vans.
That way.
Yeah, more rain ahead. Hey, okay, we're back from our trip, and as you can see, I'm no longer out in the desert. Now I'm back in the Mosko shop in White Salmon, Washington. But we got back to the vans, it was pouring rain, and we couldn't bring ourselves to pull everything out of our bags and do an unpacking video like we wanted to. So I'm going to do that today. We got back from the trip 2 days ago, and I just kept everything together so I could do a video and show exactly what we brought. Andrew has already unpacked his bag, so it's too late for him, but I still have my stuff together, so I'm going to walk through it. This is what I brought on. This is actually, it was a relatively short trip, 3 to 5 days. We didn't know exactly how many days it was going to be. I was on a KTM 500 using a Reckless 80. And I would call this my kind of like medium comfort kit. Definitely not my raw minimalist kit. You know, I brought a lot of things here that are not entirely necessary, but they're things that, you know, just kind of enhance the camping experience and the off-bike experience. And the other thing to take into account here is that we knew it was going to be wet and muddy, and we knew it would be cold. So there's stuff on here that I brought because of that, you know, that I wouldn't need on, for example, a summer trip. So I'm going to try to rip through this pretty fast because there's a lot of stuff here, so without dwelling too much on any one item. But I have it all kind of organized by where it went on the bike. So why don't I start here with on my body. I had our rack waterproof overpant. The main pant I was wearing every day is the Woodsman over the boot pant, which I love. It's perfect for this kind of spring and fall trip, enduro touring trip. And then when it rained or was really cold, I put the rack overpant over it. I brought the rack jacket, and I also used a Workhorse jersey, which isn't here because it was on me when we got back. You know, when it's not raining, I'm just riding in the jersey. When it's raining, cold or wet, I pull the rack on over the top. This one is really cool. This is our Ectotherm, our new Ectotherm heated jacket. So this thing is just great whether it's plugged into the bike or not. It's an awesome insulated puffy, really comfortable, looks cool, great for chilling around the fire. But then when we were really socked in the rain, I get on the bike, plug it into the bike, warm right up, super cozy. So it's a great thing to bring on a trip this time of year. For armor, I had the Liat 6.5 chest protector. I had some prototypes of our own Mosko armor that I was testing out for elbow and knee, the Graph base layer, and then a chamois short. A pair of Revit Gore-Tex gloves, and then a pair of Climb dirt bike gloves that are well vented. So I have one non-waterproof glove that gives me a lot of mobility in my fingers for getting on and off the controls. Then a slightly bulkier, but also quite comfortable glove, the Revit, that'll keep me dry and warm when it is chilly. So in my Stinger 22 in the Reckless 80 kit, I didn't have very much stuff. I used the Stinger 22 to carry extra stuff from my clothing, like for example the puffy when I'm not wearing it. And I also had a Strata base layer and Strata top and bottom for chilly riding, which were again on my body when I got back, so they're not represented here. This is my clothes that I brought, just stuffed into a little Equal Creek stash spot. I got an extra pair of socks, warm hat, a pair of packable pants, and an extra pair of boxers. So I don't bring much in terms of clothes, and in fact I didn't use the pants, I just hang out in the woodsman pant, which is perfectly comfortable for chilling around the fire. I bring a pair of pack shoes. These are New Balance approach shoes, the Minimus. They pack really small and still totally functional with Vibram soles for hiking and stuff like that, which is great. And I bring a stuff sack to put those in when they're dirty and muddy. And this is our 20-liter dry sack. And this thing is also great if you have something that's like wet or muddy and you need to put it in your Stinger 22 for whatever reason. You can stuff it in there along with the shoes. So that's what was in my Stinger 22. And again, that would be pretty empty when I had all the stuff on my body, and then it would fill up when it was a little warmer out and I was putting stuff in the bag. I brought a camp chair on this trip. Again, I mentioned this is kind of my medium comfort packing kit, so it's nice to have a camp chair. This is the Helinox. Pack's pretty small, doesn't weigh very much. My fatty tool roll. Both of these two things were strapped to the Reckless 80 harness. Here on the Reckless 80 harness, I've got a little tiny first aid kit. I've got my tow rope. Usually I have the tow rope nicely wound up and attached to the molly panel here, but because we used it to get a bike unstuck, it's tucked into that pocket right now. I've got in the 10-pole bag, I've got not only my 10 poles and stakes, but also in here I've got a nice open-ended box wrench, which we did actually need on this trip, and then some zip ties and one long tire iron in case you get a flat. And then up here in the map pocket, I've got my paper maps. Here in one of the leg bags, I've got my Msr Hubba NX one-person tent. You notice I don't have it in stuff sacks on this trip. On this trip I left the tent loose and used it to stuff and fill the excess space that's created when you have other things in stuff sacks. So it's important, I think, to always have a balance between things that are in stuff sacks and things that aren't. Because otherwise when you pack things in stuff sacks next to each other, there's a lot of wasted space in the crevices between. And so having a couple of loose items, could be your tent, could be your sleeping bag, could be anything, to fill those gaps, makes better use of the space. I've got my Marmot Phase 20 sleeping bag, and then I've got a Big Agnes Q-Core Deluxe. So this is like a big and tall and well-insulated sleeping pad. So again, that's a comfort item. I have a variety of sleeping pads. I have some smaller ones too, but on a cold weather trip where I think I'm going to be spending potentially a decent amount of time in the tent, sometimes I like to have a little bigger, more comfortable sleeping pad with me. I've got an X-Bed pillow, and that's my pack towel. I brought a pack towel on this trip because I knew we were going to be stopping at a bunch of hot springs, and it's nice, especially in cold weather, to have the ability to quickly dry off after soaking in a hot spring. In the other leg bag, this is my food bag. So here I've got, actually I start at the bottom of the bag with my tubes, because hopefully we won't need those, so they just kind of live down the bottom. I've got my cook pot. I've got a little coffee mug in here, also serves as a bowl, and then my little tiny GSI pour-through coffee maker. And then of course a Snow Peak titanium spork, which I bend so that it fits inside my pot. I've got an Nalgene, so this is about almost a liter, and I leave this, I think it actually is a liter. So I was using this for water storage. I also have this Msr Dromedary 2 liter, which I was not riding with that full. I actually leave that empty, and it's just there in case we're posted up somewhere for a while and I want to bring a little extra water back to camp. Or if we're going through an area where we know we're going to spend the night in dry camp, and there's no water nearby, then I'll fill that up during the day, and then I have the excess water. I have this water filter. This is the Be Free Katahdin, 0.6 liter. It's just a squeeze bottle, so you scoop up the dirty water, squeeze it out the nozzle, it comes out clean. You can fill your water storage devices that way. I've got another 20-liter dry stack. This is for garbage. So this one's pretty dirty and mucky inside, and that's what I use for campsite garbage. Got my sun lotion, camp stove fuel, and camp stove. So, and then also my food. And I actually had some extra food left on this trip. I tuck all the food in this insulated Dakine lunchbox. But I love taking the tortillas instead of bread. I take ramen and I mix it with these instant mashed potatoes, and then add a can of chicken. And that makes pretty simple, warm, well, it is kind of freeze-dried, but I prefer not to use the freeze-dried backpacker meals. I'm just not that crazy about them. Instant oatmeal for breakfast. I mix it with peanut butter for some extra calories. And there's some coffee. Again, I had some food. Oh, and I bring some bouillon cubes. I add the bouillon cubes to the ramen and the mashed potatoes to make it just a little more interesting with the chicken. Makes a really good, warm meal, lots of calories, really filling. So that's an example of what I bring for food. Let's see, what's next? Next is the Gnome Tank Bag. So this is also part of my water storage for this trip. This carries 1.5 liters of water. Again, this is a prototype. This bag's not actually out yet. But I have 1.5 liters of water in here, 1 liter in the Nalgene, and then 3 liters in my Wildcat backpack. So that's 5.5 liters of water is what I brought on this trip, plus a water filter. In the summer in the desert, I bring some extra water in addition to that, probably as much as another liter, maybe 2 more liters. But in the winter, where I know we're going to have at least some opportunities to filter water, or in the spring and fall, I tend to run a little skinnier on water. I've got some headphones, Bluetooth headset, charging cables, Leatherman center driver, so that has a bunch of driver bits with it, my business cards and stickers, pair of sunglasses, headlamp, Advil, earplugs, eye drops, chapstick. That's what goes in my tank bag. I try to keep as little up there as possible. My cell phone mounts on top of it with our Navigator cell phone case. In the Wildcat backpack, so the Wildcat has a chest rig on it. So we've got a beaver tail and a chest rig. So in the beaver tail, I have a 1.5 liter Primus fuel bottle. So I was carrying 1.5 liters of extra gas here, and then also an additional 2 liters of extra gas in this 5 liter aux pocket, auxiliary pocket, which I have strapped to the front fender. So I had 3.5 liters of extra gas. And again, I don't just tote that around. As soon as I've ridden 30 or 40 miles, I take all that gas and dump it into the tank. So essentially, I've just got an empty bottle on my back. I've got the air pump here. I've got an extra set of goggle lenses, so I bring clear and something that's tinted. Tinted during the day in the desert, but then if you end up riding at night, you're really gonna, usually we try not to ride at night, but if that does happen, it's really nice to have a set of clear goggles. I've also got this Israeli trauma bandage. I keep this in my backpack handy, just like, man, God forbid if you have a crash or someone you're with has a crash, got a bone sticking out or a big gash, something really large and bloody that needs to be sealed up. That's why I carry this and keep it handy. Got a bunch of charging cables, something for cleaning my lenses, toilet paper, of course, never leave home without the inReach. This thing is key. Especially on a trip like this where we're out in a really remote zone with 0 cell service. I've done several rescues with these things. They're a godsend when shit hits the fan. I've got my spare key and bike registration, and all that's going into the Wildcat backpack. So also in the Wildcat, I've got my 3 liters of water there. Let's see, cover everything? Yeah, I think that's it. So there you go. That's what I bring. That's what I brought on this actual trip. 4 to 5 days out in the southeastern Oregon, Nevada desert, cold weather, KTM 500. Thanks for watching.